Logan, what happened? Who did this to you? I'll make sure to take care of them. Scarlett rushed forward, her eyes filled with both concern and anger as she saw Dustin covered in blood and visibly upset. Upon learning about his situation, she promptly led her troops to rush over. Despite facing several obstacles along the way, she effortlessly eliminated the threat, even at the cost of some valuable time. Prepared for any challenge, she was ready to confront opposition, even if it meant going against the nation. I'm not seriously hurt. Don't worry. And besides, the person who hurt me is already gone. Dustin forced a smile. Logan, you rest properly for now. I'll take you to the hospital right away. Scarlett remained concerned. Kid, no need to trouble yourself. I'm not in immediate danger. Besides, there's something more important we need to focus on. Dustin said, redirecting her attention. What is it? She asked curiously. That sword strike from before, you all saw it, right? He asked. We saw it. Scarlett's expression turned serious. That strike was terrifying, beyond anything I could imagine. I never thought there could be someone so powerful in the world. That was Uncle Seth's final strike before his death. Dustin frowned, wearing a complex expression. If everything went as expected, Dragon Marsh's vital force would have been destroyed, and the Dragon Guard in power would have suffered significant blows. In the coming period, the entire Oakvale will be in turmoil. Your family, the Spanners, should make preparations. What? Uncle Seth is dead. Scarlett's expression changed. Who killed him? She had trained with Dustin and received guidance from Seth. In her eyes, Seth's swordsmanship was unrivaled. How could a powerhouse like Uncle Seth possibly die? Scarlett wondered. Uncle Seth sacrificed himself to save me. Faced with overwhelming odds, he forcibly boosted his cultivation. But in the end, he couldn't bear the burden and vanished into thin air. Dustin explained, his expression once again melancholic. Logan, my condolences, Scarlett said with a heavy heart. Although Uncle Seth has passed away, his legendary charisma will remain in everyone's hearts. I will also inherit his will and live on. Even as Dustin said those words, some things couldn't be easily let go of in a short time. Buddy, you mentioned the Dragon Guard being destroyed, and Oakvale is about to fall into chaos. Is it true? Adam cautiously asked. How much do you know about the Dragon Guard? Dustin countered with a question instead of answering. Not much. We've only heard about it occasionally. It's said the Dragon Guard is a very mysterious organization with immense power that can influence the royal family. Adam replied. The Dragon Guard approached me once and wanted me to join them, but I declined. After that, I didn't delve much further into it, Scarlett explained. At the age of 18, when she attained grandmother status and was acclaimed as the Scarlet Warrior, the Dragon Guard attempted to recruit her. However, she didn't give it much thought at the time and simply dismissed the proposition. I only learned about the Dragon Guard today, Dustin said solemnly. He explained further, this organization holds immense power, and its members are influential figures. Their influence spans the entire Dragon Marsh, even controlling the current king. That powerful. Adam's eyes widened. Though he had heard of it, he didn't know the specifics. Due to their power and the aftermath of the Dragon Guard's demise, the repercussions are bound to be substantial. The exact outcomes are unpredictable, and I just hope none of you get entangled in the chaos, Dustin cautioned. Being situated in Oakvale and belonging to the four ancient houses, we can't avoid being affected. This upheaval seems inevitable, Adam replied, shaking his head. With the immense power that the Dragon Guard held, its downfall would inevitably cause chaos. In the absence of a central authority, various factions and militant leaders would likely seize the opportunity to cause trouble. The Spanner family, as one of the ancient houses, couldn't afford to stand idly by. The world's affairs go through cycles of unity and division. The Dragon Guard ruled for so long, causing harm to countless loyalists. Any force that resisted or posed a threat was ruthlessly eliminated. now that they are facing the consequences. It's karma at play, Scarlet stated coldly. She remembered the Ailka Rebellion, where many lives were lost, including Logan's mother, Alba. Alba was an exceptionally kind and gentle woman, always involved in charitable acts and having helped countless people. She even treated beggars with respect. That was the Alba in Scarlet's memory. However, this benevolent soul fell victim to the sinister schemes of the Dragon Guard. Alongside her, many loyal patriots who served the nation were also laid to rest. Such organizations, as demonstrated by their actions, were bound for ultimate destruction. Even though the Dragon Guard has been destroyed, there are likely remnants at large. It's still a force to be reckoned with, and I will continue to investigate, Dustin declared solemnly. Alaric met his end, and Seth's sword strike took the lives of most of the Dragon Guard's key members. However, completely rooting out the long-standing influence of the Dragon Guard in a short period proves to be an extremely challenging task. Following today's conflict, the West Lucosian monarchy and the Dragon Guard have severed their ties, setting the stage for an unavoidable and unwavering conflict between the two sides. His sole mission is to kill any remaining remnants of the Dragon Guard. Logan, besides the remnants of the Dragon Guard, you should also keep an eye on the royal family's movements. With the current chaos, they might reclaim power, Scarlet reminded him. Then she cautioned, however, with the king ailing and the princes not being exemplary rulers, if one of them offends, they might see you as a thorn in their side. The West Lucosian monarchy held considerable influence, having reached the zenith of dominance. The current king demonstrated a sensible approach by acknowledging the loyalty of the Rhys family and refraining from unwarranted actions. However, the behavior of several selfish princes raised concerns. If these princes were to assume the throne, there would be a significant risk of them perpetrating various forms of harassment, potentially reigniting the tragic events of a decade ago. It stood as Scarlet's foremost concern at present. The royal family's stance will determine mine. If they wish for peaceful coexistence, we'll stay vigilant on the borders. But if they insist on being oppressive, we'll have to rise, Dustin said unabashedly. Agreed. Scarlet pledged her unconditional support. Whatever you decide, Logan, I'm with you. And me too, Abigail chimed in. Sir, if the king dares to harm you, I'll help you poison him. Buddy, you really know how to give me a headache. Adam shook his head, somewhat resigned. He continued, well, I guess I'll just sacrifice myself for a noble cause. Let's hope the king doesn't act foolishly. Otherwise, Dragonmarsh might change hands sooner than expected. As night fell, Dustin finally returned to the villa in the southern city of Oakvale. As for Scarlet, Adam, Abigail, and the others, they had gone back to prepare for the upcoming unrest. So much had happened during his trip to Quandary Mountain. Although he had learned the truth and eradicated the Dragon Guard, Seth's death left him in deep sorrow. He was exhausted, both physically and mentally. He longed for a good night's sleep, free from thoughts and responsibilities. He wanted to just drift into sleep and wake up naturally. Perhaps tomorrow would be better. Their car came to a stop at the entrance of the villa, and Dustin got off wearily. He had just opened the door when he spotted a woman sitting in the living room. She was dressed in white, wearing a veil that covered her face. The woman had a graceful figure and emitted a unique fragrance. Although her features were not visible, she gave off a gentle, outstanding allure. Grace? Dustin recognized the woman seated on the sofa immediately. Her attire, demeanor, and distinctive fragrance were hard to forget. Dustin, you're back. Maximus poured a cup of tea and placed it on the table before approaching Dustin. He informed him, Ms. Lindsay here has come to see you again, claiming it's important. However, she's being mysterious about it. Be careful. Don't worry. I know what to do. You can go and rest now. Dustin nodded, signaling Maximus to leave. He then sat on the nearby sofa. Ms. Lindsay, may I know what brings you here at this hour? He asked calmly. I know what happened at Quandary Mountain today, Grace said. And Dustin was calm, not betraying any surprise. It was obvious that Grace was no ordinary person and was most likely a member of the royal family. It was not surprising that she had found out about the major events that happened today. Not to mention, she was a disciple of the Regal Observatory and excelled in divination. She probably knew more than the average member of the royal family. Seth had severed the vital force. This significantly impacts the fate of the nation. To recover what has been lost, I must collect the 5 Draken essences emitted by the vital force. However, this is an extremely challenging task that I cannot accomplish alone. So I hope you can help me. Grace got straight to the point. And why should I help you? Destin countered. This happened because of you. You are involved and can't just escape responsibility. Besides, you'll also benefit greatly once we locate the Draken essences. It's a mutually advantageous deal, Grace said earnestly. I'm sorry. I'm tired right now and not interested in getting myself involved in these matters. Please find someone else. Destin refused flatly. Logan, this is your destiny. You can't escape it. For yourself, for West Lucosia, and for Dragonmarsh, we must find the Draken essences. It is the only way to restore peace to the world. Grace insisted. Ms. Linzer, let me be clear that the severing of the vital force and the destruction of the Dragon Guard are not necessarily bad things to me. In fact, it also presents an opportunity for the royal family. As for restoring peace to the world, honestly, I'm not ready for that. I have a lot of troubles to deal with, and I don't have the energy to worrying about anything else. So please leave, Destin ordered. He wasn't a saint and couldn't bear the responsibility of saving the world. He still had blood feuds to settle and mysteries to unravel. Saving the world had nothing to do with him. At least, not for the time being. Logan, you will help me. This is fate. There's a bond between us that cannot be untied, Grace said. Ms. Linzer, I have no interest in your art of divination, and I don't even know if it's real or fake. I'm very tired, and the only thing I want to do now is rest, Destin said wearily. Please, let me sleep. All right, I'm afraid you won't be able to sleep tonight. Grace shook her head. Someone important wants to see you, and it cannot be delayed. Someone important? Who? Destin asked. The king. Grace dropped a bombshell. Destin frowned slightly, feeling puzzled. Wasn't the king ill and bedridden? Why would he want to meet him? Destin wondered if it concerned the Dragon Guard or perhaps the vital force. Would this journey be dangerous? Would there be an ambush waiting for him in Elka? You can stop the blind guessing, Grace said calmly, seemingly seeing through his concerns. If the king wanted to harm you, he wouldn't have sent me here to invite you. He would have just sent the elite fighters from the palace or even the Imperial Guards. Given your current condition, would you even be able to fight them off? Destin breathed a silent sigh of relief after hearing her. Admittedly, Grace had made a valid point. If the king truly intended to harm him, he wouldn't have sent just one woman. Considering the current circumstances, only a fool would aggravate the problem. After all, with the Dragon Guard eliminated, the highest priority for the royal family now was to consolidate power. If anything were to happen to Destin in Oakvale, it would undoubtedly escalate tensions. If the West Lucosian army invaded, it would be a fatal blow to the royal family. However, since that was all in principle, he still had to make sure. Ms. Linzer, may I know why the king wishes to see me at this late hour? Destin probed for information. I'm not sure either, but it's important. Grace kept her response vague. If you won't talk, I won't be going. Destin became disinterested when he failed to fish for information. Grace was slightly frustrated, but for the greater good, she responded patiently. I'm not sure about the details, but it probably has to do with important matters of the nation. For example, choosing the next successor or strengthening the borders. I see. Destin nodded, seemingly deep in thought. Can you come with me now? Grace asked. Seems like there's no way to avoid it. But before we leave, I need to write a letter. Please hold on, Dustin replied before finding a piece of paper to pen the letter. Calling for Maximus, he instructed him, Maximus, keep this letter safe for me. Find another place to stay tonight. If you don't hear from me by daybreak, head to West Lucosia immediately with this letter. Understood. Maximus nodded and swiftly departed. You're pretty cautious. Logan, Grace frowned slightly but quickly schooled her expression. She was aware that Dustin was just taking precautions against a potential ambush by the royal family. With the letter serving as evidence, what can I say? It's better to be safe than sorry, Dustin said impassively. Since you've done everything you need to do, can we leave now, Your Highness? Grace said somewhat resentfully. Let's go, Dustin nodded. Led by Grace, they headed straight for Aelka. Late at night, an elderly man with gray hair and a stooped figure was reviewing official documents inside Galeen Palace in Aelka. He appeared pale and listless. Occasionally, he would erupt into violent coughing fits. After his coughing fits, his white handkerchief would even reveal faint bloodstains. The elderly man was none other than the reigning king, Valen Linzer. Your Majesty, you haven't fully recovered from your illness. It would be wise to rest and prioritize your well-being. An official attending to him urged. The king had fallen ill precisely because of overexertion, resulting in excessive fatigue. Despite having only a few days of rest and a slight recovery, he resumed the arduous task of reviewing official documents and handling various matters with unwavering dedication. How could his body possibly withstand such demands? No worries. I'll be done in a little while. Valen took a sip of tea from his cup before immersing himself back in work. Ever since the vital force was severed, the whole nation had been in turmoil, with various rumors circulating constantly. To restore stability, he had to announce that he had recovered from his illness and affirm his good health. That was the only way to thwart the opportunists trying to take advantage of the situation. However, he knew full well that he didn't have much time left. He had to make a swift decision and announce his successor to restore peace to the nation. The attendant let out a soft sigh, pained to see the king in such a state. His Majesty had always exhibited diligence in his duties, displaying unwavering devotion to his nation and its people. Suddenly, his health was deteriorating due to exhaustion. It was disheartening that none of his sons appeared reliable enough to share the weight of his responsibilities. Your Majesty! Right then, another attendant entered quietly and whispered, Her Royal Highness, Princess Grace has arrived. Oh, Grace is here. Please, invite them in. Valen finally set aside his documents and freshened himself up to look more energized. Soon, the attendant led Grace and Dustin into Galeen Palace. To avoid attracting attention, Dustin had even changed into an attendant's attire. Father, the person you wish to see is here. Grace respectfully curtsied. Father. Dustin looked at the person beside him in surprise. Although he had known that Grace was a member of the royal family, he didn't expect her to be the princess. Both of you, leave us. Valen signaled for the two attendants to leave. Then he beckoned to Dustin, smiling. Logan, have a seat. I wouldn't dare, Your Majesty. Dustin lowered his head slightly. Valen laughed and teased. You weren't this polite back then. You even dared to sit on the throne back then. I was young and ignorant back then. Please forgive me, Your Majesty, Dustin responded. All right, there's no need to be so polite. Tonight, we're not a ruler and his subject, just an uncle and his nephew. Have a seat, Valen smiled. Thank you, Your Majesty. Dustin nodded and eventually took a seat as instructed. Meanwhile, Grace took the initiative to pour them both a cup of tea. I haven't seen you in 10 years. You've changed a lot. Logan, I almost couldn't recognize you, Valen exclaimed. Your Majesty, you're still as spirited as ever. As Dustin looked up, his pupils contracted slightly before he offered a compliment. Valen looked like a completely different person compared to 10 years ago. A decade ago, Valen exuded charisma and a vibrant spirit. commanding dignity befitting a ruler. However, the Valen today appeared frail and listless, looking like an elderly person nearing the end of life. This was despite him being only in his 50s. At his age, he was supposed to be in his prime. Why did he appear so aged? When did you get so good at talking, kid? Valen chuckled. Well, this might be for the better. You've lost a little bit of edge and appear calmer. Seems like you've grown mature. Dustin lowered his head slightly, remaining silent. Before the tragic incident that occurred all those years ago, both families had shared a close relationship. Dustin's father and Valen even considered themselves brothers. They were able to talk about everything. However, all of that had changed. Even though the Dragon Guard were the ones who plotted the assassination, it did not rule out the possibility that the royal family took part in it. That was why he still didn't know how to act before Valen. If Valen chose to be honest, they would be able to continue their conversation. However, if Valen chose to be evasive, then tonight's meeting would be meaningless. Logan, are you curious about the reason I asked to see you tonight? Valen suddenly changed the subject. I'm not sure what I can help you with. Your Majesty, Dustin responded with a neutral tone. One of the reasons I sought you out was to resolve past grievances. I also have a favor to ask. Valen said truthfully. I believe you've learned some truths from your visit to Scenic Monastery today. I might look mighty as the king, but there are many things beyond my control. When your family became the target of the assassination attempt years ago, I should have provided full support and stood by your father in the fight against the Dragon Guard. But I was too afraid. I have always felt guilty about this incident. For the past 10 years, I have spent every day and night in regret and self-blame. If I had been a bit braver back then, perhaps your mother wouldn't have died, and the tragedy of that year wouldn't have occurred. Unfortunately, there's no remedy for regrets, and every step I took was a mistake. I just wanted to let you know that I'm truly sorry. Valen said, lowering his head in guilt. Father. Grace was stunned. She didn't expect her usually strong, willed father to apologize voluntarily. It was unprecedented for a ruler to apologize to his subject. Your Majesty, the past is in the past. Dustin's heart was in turmoil, but he appeared calm on the surface. Valen's apology had come as a surprise, and that had diminished the slight hostility he carried for the most part. If he thought from his perspective, Valen hadn't actually done anything wrong. He had only acted in self-defense. However, while Dustin could forgive him, both families would never return to how they were before. Logan, in fact, I also have to thank you. Even though severing the vital force had impacted the fate of the nation, it had also led to the destruction of the Dragon Guard. For the past 10 years, I've been amassing strength in secret to overthrow the rule of the Dragon Guard. Unexpectedly, due to a twist of fate, you've helped me accomplish that ahead of time. So I must thank you. Of course, although the Dragon Guard has officially been eliminated, there are still some of them out there. You need to be extremely careful in the coming days. From the way they work, they will definitely come for you. Seeking revenge, Valen warned seriously. The influence of the Dragon Guard ran deep, and it was impossible to destroy them completely. It wasn't an exaggeration to claim that almost half of the court officials had ties to the Dragon Guard. If he wanted to eliminate them entirely, having a good plan in mind was important. Thank you for the reminder, Your Majesty. I've already made preparations. Even if the Dragon Guard does not come looking for me, I will seek them out, Dustin said. In short, I will not give up until the Dragon Guard is totally destroyed. Your determination is commendable. I will support you fully and provide you with all the resources you may require. Valen said seriously. Thank you, Your Majesty. Dustin didn't refuse his offer, only nodding in acknowledgement. Regardless of the past, at least for now, both of them shared a common enemy and could work together temporarily. They would go their separate ways after everything was settled. Logan, I know you still have many questions. Just ask away. I will answer everything that I know of tonight, Valen said. I do have a question that I'd like to ask. Your Majesty. Dustin appeared to have remembered something and asked, would you happen to know where Reston Rever is? Although the Dragon Guard was destroyed, he still didn't have the full truth of what happened that year. The Prince of Carson had mentioned that there was a traitor in West Lucosia, the general of the Central Cavalry, Reston Rever. Reston excelled in both the literary and martial arts with outstanding military achievements and was also a close friend of Dustin's father. Dustin couldn't understand why such a talented person would betray West Lucosia and work for the Dragon Guard. He needed a clear answer and reclaim justice from that year. Reston Rever. Valen's pupils contracted, and he said meaningfully, he's not an easy person to deal with. He was the mastermind behind the assassination attempt incident back then. After that, he escaped by faking his death and assumed a new identity. He's an extremely cunning man. Does that mean you know where Reston is now, Your Majesty? Dustin raised an eyebrow. I don't know exactly where he is at the moment, but I'm aware of his identity after assuming a new persona, Valen explained. Oh, what name does he go by now? Dustin asked. Reston Rever now goes by Reagan Judd. The people refer to him as Mr. Judd. Valen revealed. What? Reston is Mr. Judd. Dustin's expression hardened slightly. The revelation that the mysterious Mr. Judd was Reston's alias deepened his sense of bewilderment. 10 years ago, Reston, as Mr. Judd, saved a critically injured Cinna and visited him regularly. Why would he do that if he was a traitor? Had Reston used Cinna as bait to lure him out? The alarming thing was that information on Cinna and his location was provided to him by his stepmother, Eloise. If this had been a trap, didn't that mean Eloise was highly suspicious? These thoughts left him deeply disturbed. Reston not only changed his name, but he also has another identity, the Dragon Guard's Assistant Chief Guildmaster. Valen said, dropping another bombshell. The Dragon Guard's Assistant Chief Guildmaster. Dustin's brow furrowed even more. So, he betrayed West Lucosia and my father just for the position of Assistant Chief Guildmaster? It's not that simple. Valen shook his head. To be precise, Reston was a Dragon Guard member from the very beginning. He had approached your father with ulterior motives. His betrayal back then had all been part of the Dragon Guard's plan. So, it turns out that Reston had been a mole the entire time. We trusted him wholeheartedly. But it turns out that everything had been a life friendship. Loyalty, sworn brothers in life and death. It was all a joke. Dustin's expression darkened, and his eyes grew cold. Logan, I've already investigated today's events. Even though the Dragon Guard has been destroyed with many key members dead or heavily injured, we didn't find Reston's body among them. It's very likely that he is still alive, Valen warned. It's good that he's alive. That way I can personally seek revenge and eliminate Reston and the rest of the Dragon Guard members once and for all, Dustin said with fierce determination. This matter requires careful planning. You should not rush into it. Reston is a cunning man. It's easy to fall into his trap if you act recklessly, Valen said solemnly. Upon hearing him, Dustin took a deep breath and suppressed the anger within him. He understood all too well that anger wouldn't resolve any issues. It was going to be a challenge to deal with someone as cunning as Reston, who hid in the shadows. Logan, I'll constantly keep an eye on any updates about Reston and the Dragon Guard. I'll let you know of any news immediately. Valen promised. Thank you, Your Majesty. Dustin expressed his gratitude with a respectful bow. Valen had endured a decade of hardships and must have accumulated a massive influence during that time. Now, with the Dragon Guard's downfall, he was finally Dragonmarsh's true ruler. With Valen's unwavering support, it would only be a matter of time to have Reston captured and the rest of the Dragon Guard members eliminated. Logan, if you have no other questions, let's talk about plans for the future. Valen suddenly changed the topic. I wonder what you're referring to, Your Majesty? Dustin focused intently. Logan, you're not an outsider, so I won't hide it from you. The truth is, I'm seriously ill, and my time is running out. Father. Grace was shocked. She was just about to say something when Valen raised his hand to stop her. I know the state of my own health. The doctors have already examined me, but there is nothing they can do. Although I've kept this information under wraps, I'm not sure how long it can stay that way. I'm worried that my sudden demise could disrupt the recently achieved political stability, plunging the nation into chaos once more. If that were to happen, it would only be our innocent citizens who suffer the most. Therefore, I hope you can help me this once. Do you need my help to cure your illness, Your Majesty? Destin inquired cautiously. From his observation, he could immediately tell that Valen was nearing death. Unless he took the 9-fold longevitum, he would only have 3 months left, or at most a year. However, the ingredients to produce the 9-fold longevitum were extremely rare, with many of them having only one existing in this world. It took him 10 years just to gather all the ingredients and craft one longevitum. It would be impossible for him to craft a second one. Even Destin would not be able to cure Valen's illness. I just told you, my illness can't be cured. Valen shook his head. In that case, what exactly do you need my help with, Your Majesty? Destin asked again. It's quite simple. Just help me decide on a successor, Valen said with a smile. What? Decide on a successor? Destin was taken aback and betrayed a look of surprise. Your Majesty, you're not joking, are you? Matters of such national significance are beyond my purview. There's no need to hold back. Tonight, we are not a ruler with his subject, only an uncle with his nephew. We're not talking about national affairs, only family matters. So feel free to speak your mind. Valen continued with a smile. In your opinion, which of my sons is most suitable to succeed me? Or perhaps, who do you favor more? His words left Destin completely bewildered. He never expected Valen to pose such a question. What was going on? Destin wondered if Valen was seeking an opinion or entrusting him with his family's future. Taking a moment to gather his thoughts, Destin replied, Your Majesty, I haven't had the chance to interact with the princes. Thus, I lack the familiarity needed for a fair evaluation. Please forgive me. It's all right if you're not familiar with them. Let me provide you with more insights, Valen said. He wasn't one to back down and continued. My eldest son possesses a calm temperament and grew up learning the ways of governance next to me. While he may not be able to expand our territory, he is more than capable of safeguarding what we have now. Unfortunately, his frail health and persistent illnesses make him unsuited as a ruler. By the end of it, Valen let out a sigh. His eldest son would be considered a wise ruler, but unfortunately, he didn't have a king's destiny. A prophecy had predicted that his eldest son wouldn't live past 36. If he passed the throne to him, he would probably meet his end within a few years of the taxing work. If the eldest prince isn't suitable, what about the second prince? Destin asked. Although my second son is physically strong and courageous, his arrogance and disregard for others disqualify him as a wise ruler. Valen shook his head. Even though his second son had learned the martial arts from a young age, he lacked wisdom and was impulsive. This made him more suited to be a general rather than a king. I've heard that the third prince is excellent in literary and martial arts. He should be suitable, right? Destin suggested. Yes, and many have said the same. Valen sighed. My third son is smart and sharp-witted, making him seemingly the perfect candidate when considering various aspects. However, his lack of empathy concerns me. Someone like him would not lead the country well. Valen's third son had both literary and martial talent, but unfortunately, he had a narrow-minded and suspicious nature. He would get jealous and suspect others easily. Someone like him couldn't withstand criticism, nor tolerate the presence of talented individuals. In the long run, Dragonmarsh might face a decline if led by such a ruler. That was why he didn't think his third son was an ideal choice for the throne. Either. Your Majesty, there must be a more outstanding candidate among your many other children, right? Dustin probed. My remaining sons either lack the ability or are too young to shoulder the responsibilities. That's why I'm having a headache choosing between them. Valen rubbed his temples. Throughout history, the selection of the next king had always been a careful and deliberate process. If he were still healthy, he wouldn't have to rush. He could take his time to observe his sons and groom them into a suitable successor. However, his time was running out. He needed to decide on a successor as soon as possible to stabilize the political landscape. If only Grace were a son, I wouldn't be in such a dilemma. Valen sighed again. While his sons fell short of expectations, he had a few exceptionally talented daughters. Grace, especially, possessed both virtue and talent. She was outstanding in every aspect and was near perfect to be his successor. Unfortunately, being a woman, she wasn't able to ascend to the throne. Fate was cruel sometimes. Your Majesty, if even you are troubled by this matter, then they are beyond my ability to solve. Dustin shook his head. Throughout the generations, the fight for the throne had often been accompanied by bloodshed and chaos. Dustin had his own troubles to think of and had no intention of getting involved in the conflict. While others may not be able to solve this problem, you surely can, Valen said meaningfully. You are the future king of West Lucosia and a crucial pillar of the nation. Your opinion holds significant weight. I will choose whoever you recommend. What Dustin's expression stiffened, caught off guard. While Valen initially sought his opinion, his words now implied that he was entrusting Dustin with making the final decision. He was now placed in an entirely different situation. When Dustin thought about it carefully, he could guess Valen's intentions. With the Dragon Guard eliminated, the royal family would gain true control of the nation. However, due to the Dragon Guard's influence over the years, the royal family found itself in a precarious position and needed substantial support. It was clear that Valen had considered the West Lucosian monarchy the best choice to provide this support. On one hand, the West Lucosian monarchy boasted formidable military strength and wielded influence in the court. On the other hand, since they considered the Dragon Guard their sworn enemy, collaborating with them seemed like the logical move. As long as the royal family had the backing of the West Lucosian monarchy, their position would be fortified. This was the reason Valen had sought out an audience with Dustin. Although it sounded absurd for Dustin to decide the next in line for the throne, it underscored Valen's sincerity. He was indeed a strategist with a great vision. Logan, don't feel pressured. Just choose whoever you think is suitable, Valen said with a smile. Your Majesty, this is an important matter. I truly cannot make such a decision. Dustin shook his head. There's no need to rush. I still got some time left. Take your time and think about it. Or you can discuss it with your father. Just let me know after you've made a decision, Valen said, still smiling. Dustin was in a tough spot. He wanted to refuse Valen flatly, but it appeared Valen was having none of it. Valen suddenly changed the topic. Oh, by the way, Logan, I heard you're still single. Is that right? I just so happen to have found a prospective match for you. She's not only beautiful and talented, but also gentle and refined. She would make an excellent wife. You two seem like a perfect match. Your Majesty, I appreciate your kindness, but these matters should be left to fate. There is no need to go as far as arranging a marriage, Dustin politely declined. Speaking of fate, you two have known each other for quite a while and seem to get along quite well. I believe you'll like her, Valen said. Who exactly are you referring to, Your Majesty? Dustin probed. She's right here. Valen smiled and turned to Grace. Her, as Dustin followed his gaze, his eyes twitched. Grace pointed at herself, equally surprised. Neither of them expected the conversation to take a turn toward marriage. Look at you two. You're just like two peas in a pod, Valen chuckled. My sister married your father, and if my daughter marries you, it would further strengthen our familial ties. This is advantageous for both of our families. Your Majesty, I'm very sorry. I already have someone I like. Therefore, I'm afraid I can't agree to this marriage arrangement. Destin refused flatly. It's all right. It's common for men to have multiple wives. After marrying Grace, you can marry another woman. There's nothing wrong with that, Valen said with a smile. Grace frowned when she heard her father's words but chose to remain silent. As a member of the royal family, she was aware that she had no say in her marriage. It would be arranged based on political interests rather than her preferences. Simply put, she was just a pawn in consolidating the power of the royal family. Even if she were reluctant, she wouldn't be able to fight back. In fact, marrying the Kirin was, in comparison to her sisters, already the most favorable outcome. Your Majesty, forgive me for being direct, but I don't agree with you, Destin said. He continued seriously, well, it might be normal for you to have multiple wives. In my view, a monogamous marriage is the only way to go. Not to mention, a loveless marriage is a dead marriage. I don't wish to put myself or another person in that situation. Grace was surprised at Destin's words and seemed to look at him in a different light after that. Most powerful and influential men in Oakvale had multiple women. The remaining minority either had wives from influential backgrounds, making it unwise to cheat publicly, or struggled with impotence. It was rare to find men like Destin who had self-control and refrained from engaging in improper relationships. Logan, do you not like Grace? Or do you think that she is not worthy of you? Valen probed. His daughter dominated the beauty ranking. She was at the top, whether in terms of looks or talents. Countless young talents across the land aspired to catch a glimpse of her captivating beauty. In theory, a normal man wouldn't refuse such an opportunity. Ms. Lindsay is a beautiful and talented lady. I'm the one who's not worthy of her. Moreover, my heart already belongs to someone else, and it cannot accommodate another, Destin said solemnly. I didn't expect you to be so loyal. Well, let's forget about it then. A forced marriage is meaningless. We can discuss this another time. Valen backed down. Valen believed that matters like this took time. Logan was only refusing because he hadn't fully noticed his daughter's charm. Their relationship would develop naturally once they spent more time together. That was why there was no rush for now. Thank you, Your Majesty. Destin bowed in gratitude. Logan, it's getting late. You should go back and rest. Take your time to think about my request. I'll await your answer. He then turned to Grace. Grace, please see Logan out for me. Yes, Father. Grace nodded and stood up. I'll be taking my leave first, Your Majesty. After Destin bowed deeply, he followed Grace out of Galeen Palace. Valen had just taken another sip from his teacup when he started coughing violently again. The clear tea soon turned a bloody red. Ah, if only I had a bit more time. 3 years. I just need 3 years to unite the world. Meanwhile, outside Galeen Palace, Destin was following Grace in his attendant attire. Thanks for earlier, Grace had after a brief silence. She still had many things she wanted to accomplish and had no intention of getting married yet. Destin's refusal had bought her more time. Why are you thanking me? Destin was puzzled. It's nothing. In any case, you're a good person. If there's anything you need help with in the future, just let me know, Grace said with a smile. Since you brought it up, I do have something that I need your help with, Destin said without hesitation. Tell me, then, Grace replied. Since you're so good at divination, can you predict who will eventually ascend the throne for me? Destin asked. Valen had presented him with a tough question, and he could only pose the question to someone else. I'm not God. Did you think I could predict anything I want? Grace rolled her eyes and replied somewhat irritably, besides, being the nation's ruler is in accordance with the will of the heavens. Predicting the fate of someone who carries that destiny would likely cost half of my life, and it's not even guaranteed to be accurate. Is it really that difficult? Dustin asked. Dustin frowned slightly. Then who do you think is most suitable to be the next ruler among your brothers? Trying to get me to talk now, huh? Grace chuckled lightly. Since Father presented this question to you, you should find the answer yourself. I won't be able to help. You're pretty incompetent as a Regal Observatory disciple. Dustin shook his head helplessly. The nation's fate was going to be impacted by choosing a successor. Dustin never expected such a heavy responsibility to fall on his shoulders. The key matter was that no matter who he chose, he would inevitably offend the other powerful princes. He would land himself in trouble if that were to happen. There's no need to be so anxious. Father gave you time to think about it. You can observe them carefully before deciding which prince has better potential or perhaps aligns better with the West Lucosian monarchy. Grace said meaningfully. What a bother, Dustin sighed. He could feel a headache coming on. Oh, by the way, I have another question. Dustin suddenly thought of something and asked, why do you always wear a veil? Is there something you're hiding when you re-ranked at the top of the beauty ranking? My appearance brings a lot of trouble, so it's better to keep it covered. Of course, if you wish, I can let you have a look. I'm just not sure if you're brave enough to do it, Grace said with a smirk. There's nothing I haven't gone through. Did you think I'd be afraid to look at you? What a joke. Dustin scoffed. Are you sure you want to look? Grace asked again. Of course. I don't believe that you'll be able to scare me, Dustin said defiantly. All right, then you can lift the veil yourself and reveal my true face. Grace smiled meaningfully. But I've sworn that I must marry anyone who personally lifts my veil and sees my face. What? Dustin quickly retracted his hand in fright when he heard her. Forget about it. I changed my mind. Just take me back home so I can sleep. Theft. Look at you. Grace chuckled. Logan turned out to be more interesting than she had thought. It was late at night when Dustin and Grace walked out of the palace gates. Suddenly, a group of people appeared at the corner ahead. The person leading the group was a middle-aged man dressed in traditional attire who carried himself differently. The guards behind him were no ordinary people either. They appeared to be highly skilled martial artists. Greetings, Your Royal Highness. Princess Grace, greetings, Your Highness. Prince Logan, my name is Milton Dyer. The middle-aged man took the lead, bowing respectfully to both Dustin and Grace. While his manners were impeccable, his simple introduction left both of them stunned. They had disguised themselves before entering. Ilka and stealthily made their journey without alerting anyone. How could they be intercepted as soon as they walked out of the palace gates? Milton had also confidently addressed them by their titles, seemingly knowing them well. Ilka was truly filled with extraordinary individuals. Who are you? Grace asked. Princess Grace, I'm His Royal Highness, Prince Tristan's personal attendant. I've been sent here specifically to invite the Prince of West Lucosia to a meeting at Prince Tristan's residence. Milton replied with his head lowered. Prince Tristan. Dustin and Grace exchanged glances, both having a sense of what this might entail. The fact that Tristan was able to receive news that quickly and make the necessary arrangements meant that he had planted someone in Galeen Palace. This was a line that a prince shouldn't have crossed. Mr. Dyer, may I know why Prince Tristan has invited me at this hour? Dustin feigned ignorance. His Royal Highness heard he'd returned to Oakvale and is eager to catch up. Today is a beautiful night to have a conversation over drinks, Milton said with his head lowered. Mr. Dyer, can we do this another day? I'm truly exhausted tonight and only wish to get back home and get some rest. I promise to visit another day, Dustin responded respectfully. This statement was not a lie. He had several intense battles that day and was still nursing significant injuries. He was genuinely longing for a good night's sleep. However, it seemed like fate had other plans. First, it was Grace, then the king. And now even Tristan's men were inviting him over. They were not allowing him even a moment's rest. Your Highness, Prince Tristan has prepared some food and is waiting in the mansion. If you feel tired, why not meet Prince Tristan first before resting there? I will make the necessary arrangements, Milton suggested, smiling throughout. Dustin sighed helplessly and glanced at Grace, hoping she would say something. Since Tristan is so enthusiastic about meeting you and has everything arranged for us, you should make an effort to meet him. Come on, let's get on. I'll go with you, Grace said with a faint smile. Thank you, Princess Grace. Thank you. Prince Logan, this way. Please, Milton bowed and gestured toward their ride. Look at the trouble you've landed me in. Dustin scowled at Grace and reluctantly climbed into their ride. Given the current circumstances, it looked like there was no escaping it. Refusing Tristan's invitation could lead to unnecessary trouble, and Dustin was not a fan of trouble. Weren't you at a loss with who to choose? Perhaps you will have an answer after meeting Tristan. Grace smirked. Maybe. Dustin had no mind to respond as he leaned against the car seat in a daze, his eyelids in a constant battle against drowsiness. Yet he dared not fall asleep, forcing himself to stay as alert as possible. After all, he was a thorn in the eyes of the Dragon Guard and might face an assassination attempt at any moment. That was why it was essential for him to stay vigilant to avoid trouble. They journeyed for about 20 minutes before finally coming to a stop. When he looked out the window, the sight before him was an extraordinarily luxurious building. Since the next in line to ascend the throne was not yet determined, there was a significant disparity in wealth among the princes. If their maternal family held considerable power, they would enjoy endless prosperity and wealth. On the contrary, some princes who lacked powerful backing would receive much less favorable treatment. Of course, it appeared evident that the eldest prince was an exception to this rule. Judging from his luxurious mansion and his wide network of information, it was clear that his background was far from ordinary. Princess Grace, Prince Logan, please come in. Prince Tristan has been waiting, Milton bowed as he said respectfully, ushering both Dustin and Grace into the mansion. The interior of the mansion was even more extravagant, without even mentioning the precious ornaments or decorations. The flowers and plants themselves were rare varieties that were not easily found and were worth a fortune. Even Dustin was secretly amazed at his financial power. Led by Milton, Dustin and Grace made several turns before they finally arrived at the main hall. Inside the main hall, a handsome man in his early 30s was leisurely sipping tea. He had a somewhat pale complexion and appeared frail. He carried himself with a subtle hint of melancholy, giving him the bearing of a graceful scholar. This was none other than Tristan Lynsor, Dragonmarsh's eldest prince. Right then, Grace and Dustin walked in together. Tristan, Grace said. Tristan stood up to greet them with a smile. Long time no see, Grace. He then turned to Dustin and said, I'm guessing this must be Logan. It's been 10 years. You've changed so much. I almost couldn't recognize you. Greetings, Your Royal Highness. Dustin bowed. There's no need for such formalities. We're cousins. After all, Tristan immediately went and straightened Dustin's back. Come, have a seat. Just make yourself at home. Thank you, Your Royal Highness. Thank you, Tristan. Dustin and Grace took a seat after thanking him. Logan, I'm sorry for ushering you here at this hour, but some things just cannot be delayed. I hope you understand Tristan took the initiative to apologize, showing great courtesy. There's no need to apologize, Prince Tristan. Dustin smiled faintly. It's an honor to be a guest at your residence. Tristan was about to say something when he saw Grace beside him. He said with a smile, Grace, I have a batch of precious jewelry that recently arrived. Why don't you head over and have a look? Just pick anything that you like and take it with you. Grace glanced at Dustin before nodding. Thank you for your generous offer, Tristan. I won't be holding back then. Although she knew Tristan was intentionally diverting her attention, she couldn't refuse. Milton, take Princess Grace to the treasury, Tristan gestured. Princess Grace, please. Follow me, Milton bowed and led Grace away from the main hall. After they left, Tristan poured Dustin a cup of tea. He then got straight to the point. Logan, to be honest, I invited you here at this hour to clear my doubts. Please continue, Prince Tristan. Dustin kept his tone neutral. I heard that you met with Father earlier. Did he say anything to you? Tristan probed. That's right. His Majesty did indeed see me. And we discussed the matter of the successor. Dustin replied honestly. Since Tristan had placed a mole in Galeen Palace, he must have known what they talked about. His question was probably just a test. Oh, the successor. Tristan raised an eyebrow. Has Father made a decision? Not exactly. Dustin shook his head. His Majesty said that all of you were outstanding individuals, and that made it hard to decide. That was why he asked for my opinion on who was most suitable. So, who do you think is most suitable between us? Tristan asked meaningfully. I wouldn't dare interfere in such an important national affair. Prince Tristan, Dustin replied ambiguously. No worries, just share your thoughts. You can speak freely. There's no need to hold back. Dustin put on a troubled expression. Tristan caught on immediately and clapped lightly. Soon, a beautiful attendant brought in a golden box. Tristan received the box and placed it on the table before opening it slowly. A translucent white pearl lay inside the box, emitting a soft radiance and a faint fragrance. Is this the celestial eye? Dustin's eyes widened, betraying a look of shock. The celestial eye was one of the 3 greatest sacred relics of the martial world. It shared a similar reputation with the celestial pearl and was a priceless treasure countless individuals dreamed of possessing. The celestial eye was an extraordinarily mystical item with infinite uses. It could not only see through all kinds of illusions, but it could also break through numerous intricate spells. For example, one could immediately tell if they were trapped in an illusion or ensnared by a spell. Not only that, it was also useful during battles. It could discern all of the enemy's attacks. Not only that, it could also see through their weaknesses and lethal moves. Plus, it was an advantageous item to have during treasure hunting. It could tell if something was a treasure, its exact value, and its precise location. The celestial eye would reveal them all. Dustin never expected Tristan to possess such a treasure. You have a good eye, Logan, Tristan exclaimed. He continued with a smile. This is indeed the celestial eye. I've treasured it for many years, never showing it to anyone, since fate allowed us to meet today. Allow me to present this item to you as a token of our meeting. Absolutely not, Prince Tristan. Dustin waved his hands. This is too precious of an item. I can't possibly accept it. Please, take it back. It's okay. Treasures are meant for heroes anyway. It will only gather dust in my hands since I don't have any use for it. It will fulfill its purpose in your hands, Tristan said. He pushed the treasure box forward. Take it. No need to be shy. Prince Tristan, I really can't accept such a valuable item. Dustin shook his head again. I'm several years your senior and see you as my little brother. What's a little gift from an older brother? Tristan didn't mince words and pushed the box into Dustin's hands. Putting on an angry look, he said, take it. I'll get angry if you refuse again. Dustin appeared troubled. Logan, this celestial eye will be of good use to you. Tristan suddenly said cryptically, with the vital force severed. The 5 Draken essences are now scattered across the world. If you want to find them, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. But that would change with the celestial eye. The celestial eye is able to sense the presence of unusual treasures within a 10-mile radius and lead you to it. With it, finding the Draken essences would be a breeze. Prince Tristan, why do you think I would go looking for the Draken essences? Dustin suddenly asked. Grace had told him the exact same thing. He didn't understand what was so special about it. The Draken essence is an extremely rare and unadulterated treasure that could only be found once in a millennium. You would need an immense stroke of luck to even discover one source. If you manage to gather all 5 of the Draken essences, it'd be enough to propel you straight into the realm of terrestrial immortals, Tristan explained enthusiastically. Terrestrial immortals? Dustin's eyes widened in astonishment. Is it really that incredible? Of course. Tristan nodded emphatically. Information has already spread, and major sects are taking action. That includes the Sword Union, the Celestial Alliance, and the Mystic Arts Order. All of them have joined in the race to find the treasure. Whoever finds it first would be hailed as the supreme leader of the world. If that's the case, why aren't you leading your men on the search, Prince Tristan? Dustin asked. With the Celestial Pearl, you should have a better chance at success. I've been frail and ailing since childhood and can't deal with taxing work. Not to mention trekking through mountains or waters, Tristan explained. Besides, I'm just a scholar. Why would I need the Draken essence to enhance my cultivation? Stop hesitating and just take it. You're the future king of West Lucosia and a pillar of our nation. The stronger you become, the more prosperous our country will be. 1. If I get the chance to inherit the throne, I will share the world with you, and together, we will create glory. Tristan patted Dustin's shoulder with a smile, his last sentence implying a clear message. Since Dustin had accepted his treasure, he should support Tristan's ascension to the throne, and it would be a mutually advantageous situation. Prince Tristan, I appreciate your generosity. Thank you, Dustin said. Since Tristan had already put it that way, Dustin couldn't find another reason to decline. But the main reason was because the Celestial I would help him greatly in his search for the Draken essences. The Draken essences would rapidly enhance his cultivation and allow him to break through into a terrestrial immortal. It was a tempting offer to any martial artist. Even if it went against his morals, he had to accept the gift. Dustin and Tristan continued chatting in the main hall after that, solidifying their collaboration. It wasn't until Grace picked a treasure and returned to the main hall that Dustin decided to bid farewell. He was utterly exhausted and only wanted to go back and sleep. It was already past midnight when they left Tristan's residence. Dustin was so sleepy that he had a hard time keeping his eyes open as he yawned repeatedly. Once in the car, Grace glanced at the treasure box in Dustin's arms and smirked. It looks like you've made a deal with Tristan. I had no choice. He offered too much. I didn't know how to refuse. Dustin shook his head. I can't believe the Kirin would be blinded by treasures, Grace teased. Then she asked, have you ever considered that if you agreed to back Tristan, my other brothers would see you as a thorn in their eyes? I'm aware of this, of course. That is why I will never back him publicly, only behind the scenes. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome, Dustin responded. As father said, Tristan is indeed a wise, empathetic ruler, but unfortunately, he is frail and ailing. He can't live long. Are you sure you want to choose him? Grace asked. What can I do? It's all because of that old fox, your father's absurd idea. Dustin changed his tone. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be in this dilemma. Father is under tremendous pressure. He's just acting out of helplessness. The monarchy is unstable and facing internal and external threats. If the new king cannot gain the West Lucosian monarchy's support, he will be doomed. That is why father is letting you make the decision. He is showing his sincerity while also trusting you unconditionally. Grace explained. I may not be able to handle this level of sincerity and trust. Dustin sighed softly. Forget it. I can't be bothered with these matters. I'm going to let Rufus deal with this difficult problem. Dustin leaned back in the seat, closing his eyes and preparing to rest when suddenly, the car screeched to a stop. Dustin lost his balance and fell straight into Grace's arms. He was enveloped in warmth and a gentle fragrance. What happened? Dustin was in a daze and only felt a gentle fragrance envelop him. When he finally came to his senses, he realized he was lying in Grace's arms. Grace was dressed in loose attire, so he didn't notice it at first. But the intimacy of their close proximity finally made him realize the true meaning of firmness and suppleness. What are you doing? Grace frowned in anger and embarrassment. Sorry, it wasn't on purpose. The car suddenly stopped, and I lost my balance, so Dustin felt awkward. How long are you going to touch me? Get your hands off me, Grace yelled. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Dustin was so shocked he retracted his hands immediately. Sure enough, being too tired would only lead to delayed reactions. What's going on outside? Grace asked in a slightly louder voice. Your Royal Highness, someone has blocked the way, the driver replied. Blocking the road at this late hour? Is it an assassin? Grace was the first to get out of the car. Dustin patted his face a few times to wake himself up before getting out of the car too. At the intersection ahead, a group of fully armed guards had appeared. They were clad in silver armor from head to toe, with sharp gazes and an imposing aura. They were clearly a force consisting of only the best of the best. The Silver Armor Army. What are they doing here? Grace was puzzled. The Silver Armor Army. Who are they? Dustin was curious. They are the private army of my brother, Matthias, Grace explained.